Well, good morning, everybody, and I apologize a little bit for the delay today. I worked on a new tool yesterday that I'm going to show you here in just a few minutes that I hope you find useful, and I just wanted to verify that it was up and running right this morning. So we'll get to that in just a second. But first, we've been looking here at the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. Now, this went through midnight, or 12 a.m. this morning, so the storms that rolled through here today delivered some rain to some folks that really needed it. But you notice that we saw some extremely heavy rainfall from the southwestern monsoon, which is going to continue to extend its way to the north throughout this week. But that sagging, slow-moving front brought some very beneficial rains to some folks, and as we know, some absolutely devastating flooding to others. The beneficial rains were here in parts of the Panhandle, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, right into this region, including parts of the Mid-Atlantic. But National Weather Service has officially called this a 1,000-year flood event that hit parts of St. Louis. So that would be the probability of that happening in any given year is 1 in 1,000. And I'm waiting on the National Weather Service to kind of give the official word on the flooding in Kentucky. But based upon their own precipitation frequency statistics, which they publish, given that there was over 10.5 inches of rain in places, that would put this in a 10,000-year flood event in parts of Kentucky. We have more storms coming through this particular region today. Just looking here on some satellite, I want to show you across the west yesterday because the southwestern monsoon was it was impressive. There was some extremely heavy rains here, but you can start to see some of the wildfire smoke inside of those storms in that storm cluster building into that ridge. And some of that wildfire smoke here just continued to kind of press to the east, including right over this part of Kansas. Take a look at the report today. I include the latest data on the 48-hour forecast of vertically integrated smoke. But throughout the evening hours into this morning, a storm complex moved through parts of Illinois, moved actually over some places here that had not measured much rainfall in the last 45 days or so. And you can kind of see the outflow of those storms making their way into parts of the Ohio River Valley. And again, that's the area that's seen some exceptional flooding as of late. We do have that particular region, according to the Storm Prediction Center, under a slight risk for severe storms today. And we're going to have to watch the tail end of that front coming back here into parts of Nebraska for this similar risk. But this is probably the most important update for this week. The new kind of forecast models that came out over the weekend really trended toward much more above average rainfalls for this area. Much of the rest of the pattern remained unchanged. We were concerned about the risk of drought redevelopment in the plains and western Corn Belt. We knew that there was going to be really good moisture flow out of the Gulf of Mexico, increasing storm threat over parts of the south here. Better storms in the southeast as well, including New England. Active Canadian storm track, that's been really well forecast by the models. And the extent of this southwestern monsoon is impressive. One of the big problems with that, though, is we're going to see increased fire threat from a lot of lightning activity here in the southwest, despite some of the locally heavier rainfall. And this will likely extend pretty far to the north. But coming back to this trend for this section of the Corn Belt, I want to show you, this is from the European model, and you're watching kind of 5 different model runs, and I included this in a report today, just showing you the changes in the forecast. And I really am going to highlight this region here, because over the last 5 runs, we've really seen an improvement in the rainfall. Most other locations across the country were quite consistent. And what we're forecasting here is kind of the resurgence of ridging happening into this section of the country. So today's jet stream level winds kind of park a ridge just off the coast here, redevelopment of one that's going to expand in this area, and we're going to continue to see the subtropical ridge sitting somewhere in this vicinity. But the flow pattern really has broken down and returned back to something that it had been for much of June and July, and we're continuing to see that. So we're going to watch the heat leave the Pacific Northwest, where we still have excessive heat warnings and heat advisories. Also, a large area of red flag warning in the Columbia Basin, parts of Oregon, and now Montana, Wyoming. This is where the winds are going to get stronger out of the west today, really increasing that fire threat. While the flooding rains are to the south, and we've opened now up to an area here of heat advisories in the midsection of the United States. More on that heat in just a few seconds. But if you watch that Canadian storm track, okay, so this is getting through Monday into Tuesday this week, what we're going to see is stalled out front from the first system is here, so flow out of the southeast, delivering better rains. But you're going to see storm systems rolling through the Canadian prairie such that by Wednesday, this frontal boundary will stretch right through the Corn Belt, increasing rainfall chances here. That was kind of an improvement over last week's model runs. And then as we go into the overnight hours on Wednesday into Thursday morning, that front stalls out, lows wrap up here in Hudson Bay. And if you just watch this toward the end of this week, we just continue to see that slow moving front here, really increasing the rainfall throughout the southeast, throughout the mid-Atlantic, into the Ohio River Valley and the eastern Corn Belt, while the next low by Friday evening is moving out of Manitoba into parts of northern Ontario. So then into Saturday and Sunday, the next front swipes through. And this is where the models did a better job resolving the moisture and the precipitation over the weekend. We had alluded to this happening in last week's report, but now we're just getting some better model evidence, and I'm going to bring you up to speed on that. So we kind of pull this all through into the weekend, and we've just seen improved storm chances. The problem will be there will be pockets in through this region, kind of highlighted here, they're going to miss out on some of these storms. And as a result of that, the temperatures are really going to skyrocket and really increase evaporation rates and cause some local flash drought issues. So we distill it all down over our next 10 days into one map here. This is what the probability of getting another inch of rain looks like. So take a moment and pause the video and have a close look here, but you see those main features kind of jumping out. By the time we get to day 10 though, we still have that same summer pattern we've seen a lot. And it features a ridge that retrogrades and sets up here. But what this likely does is it delivers ridge-riding storms around the periphery and that active Canadian storm track that curls up into those lows over the Hudson Bay. And you've heard me say that on repeat for a long time. The big difference, though, is that this is the new Week 2 precipitation anomaly forecast. And while we still don't see much activity coming out of the tropics, it just continues to be a lull in the tropical activity, we see the southwest monsoon really taking over, and the likelihood of staying exceptionally dry here has backed off in the models, with better chances of those storms coming through this section of the country into New England. All right. Now, the temperatures ahead of this, though, are impressive, and this is the new tool that I built for you and just tested this morning. Based on some research by Elwin Taylor out of Iowa State, we can calculate something called a stress degree day. I've shown it to you before, but it's looking at the temperatures that are over 86 Fahrenheit. And his research suggested that for dryland corn farming, anything over 140 of these units collected throughout the year show significant yield loss. So here's this year's map, but I put all the other previous year's maps in there. So for example, that's 2012. And you can come back here and even go way back in time. Let's go all the way back to 1988, and that's what the map looks like. So green is where you haven't hit 140. Red is where you had. So I thought you might like that tool. I linked it in the report today. Let's finish up on temperatures real quick, because we do still see significant soil moisture issues here. And as the temperatures today really build out of Monday's highs into Tuesday, that's where we're going to see triple-digit heat in this area. And I'm concerned about flash drought development. But the heat's going to come in waves in the plains. Here's Wednesday's highs, getting into Thursday and Friday. See, the next wave comes through at that point. And then we get into Saturday's highs and Sunday. So you just notice we're watching this week multiple waves of very hot temperatures coming into that area. Now, one thing I will be watching carefully is how many nights this week we spend with lows well over 70 Fahrenheit. There could be several of them, like Wednesday morning here, seeing the lows in parts of Iowa approaching 80 Fahrenheit. Those are too hot for the crops that are grown here. But what you'll notice is with that ridge retaking shape, as I play out here through the first week of August and into the second week of August, you can see where the highest temperatures are forecast to remain. It's primarily staying west of the Mississippi River, really occupying this large region in through here. There's the southwest monsoon, the cooler air on the kind of the down-sloping side of the ridge, and that seems to be the setup. So had a little bit longer video for you here this morning, but just wanted to bring you up to speed with stuff I watched all weekend. I'll give you a more in-depth report tonight, and we'll talk again tomorrow morning. Thanks.